Adaora Okeke was the kind of woman who made heads turn wherever she went, with caramel-toned skin that seemed to glow effortlessly under the Lagos sun and almond-shaped eyes that sparkled with mischief and charm. She was the definition of beauty. Her long, curly weave framed her flawless face, cascading down her back like a river of silk. Her slim waist, manicured nails, and perfectly arched brows were the envy of her friends and the constant subject of admiration on Instagram.com. But beyond the glam and luxury, Adaora had little patience for chaos, especially the kind that came from her 3 children. Her home, a massive duplex in the heart of Lekki, was a reflection of her lifestyle. Glass chandeliers hung from the ceiling, while marble floors gleamed underfoot. Expensive paintings lined the walls, and every corner smelled faintly of imported lavender candles. Yet despite all the beauty and wealth, Adaora found her children exhausting. "Noah, stop pulling my wig," she screeched as her toddler yanked at her hair. Giggling with pure joy, she quickly set him down in his playpen and turned to her 2 older children, Amara and Obi, who were fighting over a toy car on the living room floor. "Obi, share with your sister," Adaora shouted, but neither of them listened. Her phone buzzed. Bestie Callan flashed across the screen. "Kioma babe, I'm losing my mind here," Adaora groaned, answering the call as she walked out to the balcony to escape the noise. Kioma's laughter echoed through the speaker. "You and these kids, why didn't you hire a proper nanny already?" "I know, right?" Adaora sighed, rubbing her temple. "I can't keep up. I have a spa appointment tomorrow, then brunch at Orchid Bistro. These children will finish me if I don't get help." "Girl, you need someone fast before you lose that fine figure with all this stress," Kioma teased. Just then, Chuka Okeke, Adaora's husband, walked into the house, dropping his car keys on the console table. He was tall, with a commanding presence, always calm even amidst the chaos. "Who are you yelling at this time?" he asked, raising a brow. Adaora rolled her eyes and ended the call. "Your children. I'm barely surviving here. Chuka, I can't keep playing housemaid when I have a life to live. You need to get us a nanny." Chuka chuckled, scooping up Amara into his arms. "Ada, these are your kids. You can't keep running away from them." Adaora's face tightened. "And I can't keep looking like a tired housewife either. I want someone who can handle them properly while I manage my business and my life." Chuka sighed. He had married Adaora for her beauty and charisma, but sometimes her obsession with appearances tested his patience. "Fine, I'll call Mom and Ken. She knows people who can recommend a good nanny." Adaora's face lit up. "Thank you, baby. Just make sure she's neat, respectful, and can cook. I can't have some bush girl in this house." A week later, the house was unusually quiet as Adaora stood at the front door, waiting for the new nanny to arrive. Her long anchor gown clung to her curves, her nails freshly painted, and her gold hoop earrings gleamed under the sun. A knock echoed through the house. Adaora opened the door to see a young woman standing there, clutching a small travel bag. "Good afternoon, Ma," the woman greeted softly, her head slightly bowed. Adaora's eyes ran over her. She was simple, wearing a pale blue gown, her hair neatly braided under a black scarf. Her deep brown eyes looked gentle, almost too soft. "Vivian, right?" Adaora asked, crossing her arms. "You've worked as a nanny before." "Yes, Ma. I worked with Madame Gloria in Vestac before she moved abroad." Adaora hesitated for a second, then waved her inside. "You look calm. I hope you can handle my children." "They're a handful. I love children, Ma. I promise I'll take care of them." Just then, Chuka walked downstairs with Noah in his arms. Vivian's eyes flickered toward the toddler, and a small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corners of her lips. "This is Noah, our youngest," Chuka said, handing him over to her. Vivian held him with ease, bouncing him lightly as Noah gurgled happily. Adaora smiled. "I think you'll do just fine." Later that night, the Okeke household felt calmer. Adaora lounged in the living room, scrolling through her phone, as the sounds of her children laughing drifted from upstairs. Vivian was already working wonders. But as night fell and the house grew quiet, Amara sat up in bed, clutching her teddy bear tightly. Her wide eyes stared at the dark corner of the room. "Vivian," she whispered. Vivian sat silently in the rocking chair, humming a soft tune. "Who's that in the corner?" Amara asked, her voice shaking. Vivian didn't answer right away. Instead, she tilted her head slowly, her eyes glinting in the dim light. "Sometimes, little ones see things adults can't," she whispered. Amara's grip on her teddy bear tightened as the shadows in the room seemed to stretch. The sun filtered gently through the cream curtains, casting a warm glow over the Okeke household. Adaora sat on the patio, scrolling through her phone as she sipped freshly brewed coffee. Vivian stood nearby, swaying Noah in her arms, softly humming a lullaby. "Vivian, you're a lifesaver," Adaora said without looking up. "For the first time in weeks, I can breathe." Vivian smiled modestly. "It's my job, Ma." "Good. I have a facial appointment this afternoon, and then I'm meeting my friends. The kids are all yours." Vivian nodded. "They'll be fine with me." Adaora barely noticed how Vivian's grip on Noah subtly tightened. The house felt different when Adaora left, quieter, but not in a peaceful way. Upstairs, Amara sat on her bed, arranging her dolls, while Obi worked on a puzzle on the floor. Vivian entered the room carrying a tray of sliced apples. "Time for your snack," she said, her voice soft but oddly flat. Obi jumped up immediately, but Amara hesitated, her small face crinkling with suspicion. "Do you not like apples?" Vivian asked, tilting her head. Amara bit her lip. You were talking to someone last night." Vivian's smile didn't falter. "Maybe you were dreaming, Amara." "No, I saw someone." In the corner, Vivian's eyes darkened for a split second, but then she laughed lightly. "Sometimes shadows play tricks on our minds. Don't be scared." But Amara wasn't convinced. She took a slice of apple, chewing slowly, her wide eyes still fixed on Vivian. Later that night, the wind howled outside as the night deepened. Rain lashed against the windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Amara awoke suddenly, her room cold despite the windows being shut. Her teddy bear had fallen from the bed, lying near the dark corner she dreaded. "Obi," she whispered, nudging her brother who slept on the mattress nearby. Obi gradually sat up. "What? My bear? It's near the corner." Obi half-but got up, tiptoeing to where the bear lay. Just as he reached for it, a soft creak echoed in the room. They both froze. The rocking chair in the corner, the one Vivian sat in during bedtime stories, began to sway gently though no one was sitting in it. "Obi, come back," Amara whimpered. But before he could move, the bedroom door creaked open. Vivian stood there, her face half hidden by the shadows. "You two should be asleep," she said, her voice carrying a warning beneath its softness. Amara swallowed hard. "The chair, it's moving." Vivian's eyes flicked to the rocking chair, and then back to the children. "It's just the wind," she said, but deep inside, Amara knew better. The next morning, Chuka sat at the dining table, sipping his tea and scanning through emails when Amara shuffled in, her shoulders drooping. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging on his sleeve. He looked down, surprised by her pale face. "Amara, what's wrong?" "Vivian, she scares me." Chuka frowned. "Why, sweetheart?" "She talks to people who aren't there." Chuka's heart skipped, but before he could probe further, Adaora swooped in. "Amara, don't be dramatic," Adaora chirped, kissing her daughter's head. "Children and their wild imaginations." Chuka wasn't so sure. He glanced at Amara, noticing the tension in her small face. Later, as Adaora gushed over her upcoming event, Chuka silently made a note to keep an eye on Vivian. That evening, after Adaora left for a late-night dinner, Chuka found himself alone with the children and Vivian. As he passed by the living room, he saw Vivian standing still, facing the dark window. Her reflection stared back at her, but something about her posture sent a chill down his spine. Too calculated. "Vivian," he called. She didn't turn. "Vivian." His voice was firmer this time. She slowly turned around, her face calm, almost too calm. "Yes, Sir. He forced a smile. Everything okay? Yes, sir. Just thinking. Chuka hesitated before nodding. All right, carry on. But, as he walked away, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. Chuka Okeke couldn't shake the heavy feeling in his chest. Adaora dismissed the children's fears as childish imagination, but Amra's trembling voice and Obai's recent mood swings didn't sit right with him. The following days were a blur of Adaora's events, spa sessions, and endless brunch, leaving Vivian fully in charge of the children. Chuka, buried in work, noticed subtle changes. Amara barely spoke. Obi grew quieter, and Noel, once a bubbly toddler, now clung to Chuka whenever Vivian walked into the room. One evening, Chuka returned early from work. The house was unusually silent. He climbed the stairs cautiously, the soft creak of the steps amplifying his unease. Halfway up, he heard soft sobs. He followed the sound to Amra's room. The door was slightly ajar. Through the gap, he saw Vivian standing over Amara, who sat curled on the bed, tears streaming down her face. Vivian's voice was calm, almost soothing. If you tell anyone, Amara, the shadows will come for Obi next. Do you want that? Amara shook her head violently, her small shoulders trembling. Chuka's breath caught in his throat. He burst through the door. Vivian, what the hell is going on? Vivian's face snapped into a calm mask. Sir, she was crying. I was only trying to calm her. But Amara leapt into Chuka's arms, clutching him tightly. Daddy, please. I'm scared of her. Chuka's mind raced. The signs had been there all along. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Vivian, leave this room, now. For a moment, something dark flickered in Vivian's eyes, but she obeyed, brushing past him with eerie calmness. Chuka's grip tightened around Amara as he dialed Adaora's number. Hello? Adaora answered with her usual upbeat tone. You need to come home. Now? That night, the Okeke house was tense. Adaora returned, irritated. Chuka, why are you overreacting? Vivian has been nothing but helpful. Amra's a kid, she's probably making up stories. Chuka slammed his hand on the dining table. Adaora, one of our children is terrified, and you're still thinking about appearances. Have you even looked at them lately? Adaora flinched. It was rare for Chuka to raise his voice. Before she could respond, a piercing scream echoed from upstairs. Both parents bolted up the stairs to Obai's room. The sight froze them. Obi lay limp on the floor, his eyes wide open, lifeless. Vivian knelt beside him, her hands trembling, but her face strangely blank. Adaora let out a gut-wrenching scream, collapsing beside her son's body. What happened? She cried. Vivian's voice was eerily calm. I found him like this. He was fine then. He just stopped breathing. But Chuka's eyes locked onto something, a faint, purple bruise on Obai's neck. His heart sank. You did this? He whispered. Vivian tilted her head, her calm mask finally cracking. I was only helping. He wouldn't stop crying. Chuka lunged at her, but she slipped out of his grasp, running down the stairs. The police arrived within the hour. Vivian was found hiding near the backyard, silent, as they cuffed her. As they led her to the patrol car, she looked over her shoulder at Chuka and Adaora. You think you're the first. There are always people like me in places like this, watching your children when you aren't. Adaora collapsed into Chuka's arms, her body racked with sobs. Months later, the Okeke household was quieter, haunted. Her beauty, once so carefully maintained, now paled under the weight of grief. I should have listened sooner, he said, his voice hollow. Adaora didn't respond. Her tears had long dried out. Amara, once so bubbly, barely spoke anymore. But in their silence, there was a lesson. Appearances could be deceiving. And sometimes, evil walked right through the front door, hidden behind the gentlest smiles.